This is a niche horror film that has just been released in North America. Although the production cost is not high, the process is still chilling, especially the ending full of despair and powerlessness, which is chilling. Don't miss out on horror movies if you love them. Of course, the timid insult me. The story begins with this man named Yate. He takes his pregnant wife Claire go home to visit his father, whom he has not seen for many years. His father is a body makeup artist who often undertakes some funeral services. Therefore, there are always many families downstairs who mourn the dead relatives. The father was obviously very excited at the moment he saw his son. It turned out that many years ago, there were many problems in their father-son relationship, so there was no news since Art went to England. And this time, not only did my son come back, but he also brought back a very beautiful daughter-in-law. How could this make the old man unhappy? In the evening, his father specially made a sumptuous dinner. He thought that his relationship with his son could be improved, but little did he know that Yate's true purpose for coming back was not that. Because his loan had problems, he wanted to help him get through the difficulties by selling his old house. He also knew that his father would definitely not agree, so how to deceive his father became a problem. After all, they had not seen each other for many years, and Yate had to find a reasonable reason. The wife beside him, Crannel, was also unaware of his financial problems, otherwise she would never have come back with him due to her woman's personality. Just as the father and daughter-in-law were having a great conversation, a phone call interrupted their conversation. It turns out that over the years, it has been Yate's uncle Jill who has been helping the family transport the body. Tonight, a body happened to be delivered and Yate's father needed to tidy up his makeup. However, the father believed that since his son is back now, it would be better to train him so that he can become a sideline in the future. So after dinner, the two of them came to the court world. Jill was somewhat surprised by his nephew's return, as he knew that the relationship between father and son was not that good. However, nothing was said on the spot. The body of an elderly person was brought, reportedly committing suicide. Before preparing to tidy up his makeup, Jill had something to say to his brother, so the father asked his son to try it out first. Even though Yate was reluctant in his heart, he had to agree in order to please his father. With the departure of the two, Yate officially began to tidy up the dead for the first time in his life. When he opened the shroud bag, a dagger inserted into his body suddenly appeared in front of him. Yate carefully looked at it, then pulled out the dagger and threw it into the pool. What he didn't know was that some strange symbols appeared on the handle of the knife that had been dripped by water. After the clothes were cut open, Yate suddenly discovered that there was a sapphire necklace on the deceased's body. For him at this moment, this is simply a windfall. So before his father came back, Yate quickly brought scissors and prepared to take them for himself, but he didn't expect the rope to just be cut off. As the lights flickered back to normal, Yate was frightened. At the same time, his father also returned here. He didn't want to be discovered by his father, so he quickly kicked the gemstone fragments into the drain. Feeling that his son's emotions were not quite right, the father asked him what had happened. At this moment, the body suddenly moved again, which startled Yate a lot. His father told him that this was a normal wet slurry reaction and also the last carnival of his body. Seeing his son unable to relax, the father felt that he couldn't continue tonight, so he asked Yate to go back and accompany Claire. The next day, he will teach him how to operate it. As Yate left, the old man saw the dagger with a symbol in the pool, and a bad feeling suddenly appeared in his heart. So he went back to his study and carefully studied for a whole night. In the end, after finding nothing, he called his friend, a pastor named Martin. Upon hearing the old man's description, Martin indicated that it seemed to be a legendary seal rune. According to relevant records, it can seal demons from hell, but it also needs to be paired with other seals. He asked Yate's father if there was anything else, and the old man said it was only this dagger, which was a bit strange. Without the seal dance, where did the demon's body go? However, what everyone didn't know was that an evil existence had already been accidentally released by Yate, and that night, a series of strange things began to appear at home. At first, Yate always felt something staring at him in the dark, but when he carefully examined it, he didn't notice anything. And when his wife Claire woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, the door in the bedroom suddenly opened automatically. The woman who heard the sound turned to look, thinking it was the sound caused by her husband flipping over. She didn't pay much attention and prepared to go back to bed to rest, but as soon as she walked out of the bathroom, the lights behind her lit up again. At the same time, there seemed to be something in between the two door blocks. Just as the woman was about to come forward to check, the dead old man suddenly appeared and pressed hard on the woman's stomach, with bloodstains soaking throughout her body. As the woman was awakened, he realized that he had actually had a nightmare. But when he woke up and walked into the bathroom, a small patch of blood appeared on the bed in the reflection of the mirror not far away. On the other hand, Jill accidentally saw his nephew in contact with the people at the bank, and at that moment, Yate's phone left in the car rang. After answering, Jill finally found out why Art had to come back. So after a busy day's work, he angrily found his brother and told him about Yate's desire to sell his property. Although Yate has been trying his best to defend himself, his father's face is still filled with disappointment, even thinking that his daughter-in-law and he are deceiving him together. Claire couldn't defend himself, so he had a big argument with Art at night. Due to helplessness, Yate could only speak out about the financial crisis they had experienced. Not only was he unable to repay his mortgage, but he also feared that he would not have the money to raise his child after birth, which is why he ultimately chose this method. Claire didn't expect such a situation to happen either. Although he didn't know what to do, he firmly refused to sell his father's property. The two eventually discussed and decided to rely on themselves to get through the difficulties, and Claire also instructed Art to apologize to his father the next day. At this moment, the father was staying in the studio feeling sad and upset. Although he didn't know what had happened to his son, the old man considered it and decided to help him no matter what. Just then, a strange sound suddenly came out. As he walked over to check, he saw the door of the room not far away suddenly close, and the lights in the room began to flicker incessantly, as if some monster had emerged from the darkness. The old man was frightened. He hurriedly wanted to escape, but couldn't open the door behind him. As the lights went out, the room fell into darkness. The next day, when Yate arrived at the studio, he realized that his father had actually died. He collapsed and asked, "How did this happen?" However, Uncle Jill walked up to him and angrily said that it must have been because of his sale of the house that his brother couldn't bear it and chose to commit suicide. So, shortly after Yate returned, he lost his father and his family and friends rushed over to attend the funeral. Even Pastor Martin came here to mourn his friend. As there were more and more people at home, Claire also worked tirelessly with a big belly. As soon as he put things in the refrigerator and closed the door, a strange little girl suddenly appeared in front of him. Claire was startled and didn't know whose child this was. Just as he turned his head, the girl ran behind the mirror not far away and covered herself with a white cloth. As Claire slowly approached, the girl seemed to disappear out of thin air. When Claire lifted the white cloth and looked at it, there was indeed nothing, and it was possible that she had an illusion. However, when I turned my head, I saw that everyone around me seemed to be at a standstill. The eerie girl stood not far away, and when I turned back, everything was normal again. Claire asked the girl what she wanted, but suddenly a white cloth covered his head. As he struggled to lift the cloth, the girl suddenly said, "Help me." Such a strange scene directly frightened Claire. Under the strange gaze of the people around him, he quickly escaped from here, and this scene was also seen by Martin not far away. That night, Yate was controlled by a strange sound in his sleep, and then went straight to the living room to draw a strange pattern of magic arrays. After he woke up, everything on the ground suddenly disappeared. He quickly returned to the bedroom and told his wife about it. Taking into account the recent strange events that have occurred frequently, the two of them discussed leaving here immediately once their father's affairs were resolved. The next day, while dealing with the remains of the suicidal old man, Yate discovered the dagger with runes and a string of keys. Since the body arrived, a series of strange things have happened. In order to understand the truth, Art came to his home according to the information. Here he found a strange pattern of the array, which seems to be the same as what he saw last night. At the same time, Yate also found a package under the floor. Upon opening it, there was an old videotape, and then he began playing the content inside. It was only through the old man's narration inside that he found a way to summon angels in order to resurrect his deceased wife. Through this method, he uses his granddaughter as a medium to summon angels. However, as the summoning ceremony began, the old man realized something was wrong, but before he could think more, he was thrown out and his granddaughter was heavily smashed to the ground. Obviously, they summoned another terrifying thing. Upon seeing this, Art finally understood that the old man must have summoned a demon. Later on, I didn't know how to seal it, but with the old man's suicide, the demon also followed his body to his home. At the thought of this, Yate hurriedly contacted his wife, but Claire did not receive it because an old lady approached him. The old man claimed to be his wife and was sent here a few days ago. He wanted to see his wife Claire again in the end, but he didn't think much, and Art wasn't at home. So he took the old lady to the morgue and pulled out the body of the suicidal old man there. But at that moment, Claire's stomach suddenly began to ache. The old lady said, "This is because you took what he had before his death, and only by returning it to him can you alleviate this pain." As he spoke, he pointed the direction of the pendant to him, and Claire did indeed find a shattered gemstone inside. In extreme pain, he had completely lost his judgment. With the guidance of the old lady step by step, he completely burned the rune paper on the gemstone. The old man's body also burned instantly, and with the flames, an ugly and terrifying demon was finally released completely. Under such a terrifying scene, Claire turned around and fled, then hid under the table in the living room. By the time Yate returned home, the entire house had undergone earth-shattering changes. A magic circle was being drawn on the floor not far away, and he didn't have time to think much. He quickly searched everywhere for his wife. At this moment, the eerie little girl appeared again, and his wife was lying on the sofa not far away. He hurriedly walked over to call for his wife, then held Claire and prepared to leave. Unexpectedly, as soon as he left the room, his wife disappeared, and he stood in the same place as before. When Yate walked inside again, he saw the same scene. Even though he held his wife and left again, Claire still disappeared without a trace. It seems that Yate has already fallen into an illusion. At this moment, Uncle Jill's phone call came over. After a headache, Art also woke up. So he told Uncle Jill what had happened and watched the videotape again with Jill. At this moment, Jill finally understood that this ghost must have killed his brother, so he quickly called Pastor Martin over. And Martin was also shocked when he saw the pattern on the ground, because they were not dealing with ordinary wickedness, but with a real demon. Immediately after, a few people arrived at the morgue and saw the old man who had already been burned to charcoal. Martin thought to himself that something was wrong, but fortunately, on the ground not far away, he found the sealing gemstone. After gathering all the gemstones together, he also announced the arrival of this demon. That's a Biff, who looks like a sheep-headed monster. He likes to eat the fear and despair in human hearts and is good at creating fantasies. Although the old man who sealed it has been burned into charcoal, these charcoal ashes can still prevent a Zuzu from approaching. Next, all you need to do is make a plan and reseal it. However, one still needs to sacrifice oneself. In order to save his wife, Yate took the initiative to step forward. But just then, the door suddenly opened, and a powerful force shattered the glass and quickly twisted Martin's neck. Seeing that the demon had descended, the two of them hurriedly ran to the hall and sprinkled a circle of charcoal ash around themselves. Just then, as Art looked up, he suddenly saw his father appear. Just as he wanted to express his apologies to his father, Jill grabbed him and told him that it was all an illusion. He then handed him a Bible to keep his true nature. Suddenly, a Zuzu appeared again and directly pushed Jill out of the circle. In Yate's frightened expression, Jill was dragged away alive. After everything returned to tranquility, the six gods without a master, Art, began reciting the Bible. However, at this moment Claire walked over and before he could speak, a powerful force closed the door. Meanwhile, Claire's screams of agony immediately came over. Seeing that this wife is in danger, Yate can only step out of the circle. After a strong roar came, he quickly recited the Bible in his hand, as if it was really useful. Not long after, the whole world quieted down. Yate didn't think much and quickly walked in to save his wife. Claire's entire body was fixed to the window, and it seemed that the AB team wanted to throw him out of the window. He wanted to help, but was completely powerless. Driven by helplessness, Art once again took out the Bible and began reciting it. As he read it, the text on it suddenly became blurry, so he closed his eyes and began to silently recite the content in his heart. Sure enough, not long after reading it, a Bizu was sealed inside his body, and as long as he ended his life, he could be completely sealed. Yate picked up a dagger and wanted to commit suicide, but the dagger was thrown away by the demon in the air. At a critical moment, Uncle Jill picked up the knife and walked over. With his help, Yate fiercely stabbed the dagger into his body. Has the demon been sealed? It seems that there is no, because Jill suddenly changed his expression and told Art that he shouldn't have walked out of the circle. Upon hearing this, Yate turned his head and found that the sealing gem had long fallen to the ground, and his uncle had also died not far away. Everything was an illusion created by demons, and thus, Art died in this illusion. The next morning, Claire woke up from under the table, as if everything had calmed down. As he slowly walked out of the room, he happened to see Art standing not far away. When he saw each other, the two immediately walked towards each other. But the next moment, Claire felt something was wrong. Claire. To avoid missing out on more exciting movies, please click subscribe.